10 o'clock. That's the time we start. Governor Batt and I would like to express our appreciation to you and for being here this morning. And we'll have some comments that each of us will make. Let me introduce to you the gentleman who's on my right here at the table, Laird Lucas of the Advocates of the West, who is also our legal counsel. And we'll get into that, why we need legal counsel. Perhaps we need legal counsel if some of these people do not see the light. But with that, just let me give you a little reminder of about a month ago when we met in this same room. Governor Batt and I were extremely displeased with the waiver that was granted without any public input by the governor and by the Attorney General on the 1995 Batt agreement that we've finally put together after many, many years of trying to get the nuclear waste out of the state of Idaho and away from the largest freshwater aquifer in the United States, the Snake River Aquifer. Anyway, since that point in time, we have attempted to discover what we could in the way of their NEPA compliance. To my knowledge, there has been no involvement by either DOE or the state of Idaho in meeting the policy that's set forth in the National Environmental Policy Act. We feel that they're in violation. DOE is in violation. DOE should follow the law just as the citizens of Idaho or any other state follow. And that means that when there is a significant activity by the federal government, that there has to be public input. And on page 4 of the handout that you have there, there's just a line or two of language in our letter to the Secretary that I want to point out to you, that NEPA requires not only that an agency consider every significant environmental impact of proposed action, but it also reveals this to the public. And NEPA requires federal agencies to prepare a detailed EIS for all major federal actions significantly affecting the quality of human life in America. The destruction, the waiver, attempted repeal of the 1995 Batt Agreement, in my opinion, is exactly an example of that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have now sent a letter just today by certified mail and by email to the Secretary of DOE in Washington, D.C. Forestall Building. We've also sent copies to the governor and to the Attorney General. The intent of this is to tell them either comply with the policy set forth in NEPA, or the governor and I will be forced to file litigation in the federal court, which we are prepared to do and which we intend to do if it's necessary. We hope it isn't. If you'll notice in all of our communications, we have said that we would hope that DOE and the state of Idaho would come to their senses and comply with the law, and then therefore it would not be necessary for us to litigate. But if we need to, we will.
Yes, sir.
And he's tough, but next to him is our attorney, who is tougher than that. Now, the point that we can't ignore is that to continue to give waivers means that there's just a continual stack up of the waste above the aquifer. Now, anybody with any experience or knowledge of the situation knows full well anything that comes in is going to be here for a long, long time, stacked up with the stuff that has already accumulated here above that aquifer. And to continue to give waivers against the Batt agreement is not in the best interest of the state of Idaho. Now, they say, well, this is just two more shipments. But if you look at the letters from DOE to the governor and from the governor to DOE and back and forth, you'll find that they're saying they plan to expend about up to $200 million over the next 10 years. 10 years. That tells you very clearly that there's more shipments to come for it to stack up. This is above the aquifer, is absolutely the poorest place in the entire world for you to store this material. With that, let me turn to my colleague on my right here, Governor Batt, who was the architect of the '95 agreement, by the way. And Phil, any comments that you would care to make?
Well, it's clear that we're talking about substantial amounts of spent commercial nuclear waste under these proposed agreements from the governor's office and the attorney general. I mean, the latest proposal includes 50 used rods. I almost got recalled over bringing in 8 after Governor Andrus was left office and I took charge. The people made it very clear of anything in my administration. They didn't want any more nuclear waste stored above the Snake River Aquifer. They've made it extremely clear. And for these folks to start pecking around at it a little bit here and there is totally against the wishes of the people as expressed at that time. We put the agreement up for a vote, other people did. We were sustained by a vote about 2-1 after pleading our case, and there was no question but what people were very concerned about getting any additional waste in. If the Andrus administration or the Bush administration wants to bring more in, they should take it to the people. They're the ones that said they didn't want any more, and to come through the back door or more or less start incremental acceptance of more waste is totally against the wishes of the people, in my opinion.
All right, thank you very much, Phil. Let me turn to our counsel. Laird, with reference to our opinion on the violation of NEPA, you got some comments that you would care to make?
Thank you, Governor. I'm honored to be able to represent former governors Andrus and Batt. I'm an environmental lawyer. I specialize in federal environmental law, and I followed what's happened with the prior litigation begun under Governor Andrus and resolved by Governor Batt. The 1995 Batt settlement agreement is very clear. No shipments of commercial spent nuclear fuel to Idaho. We're talking about light water reactors. These are commercial nuclear reactors around the country that have spent fuel piling up, and it's a problem that doesn't have a solution. And what it appears is the Department of Energy wants to look at Idaho as a location for the solution of what do you do with this commercial spent nuclear fuel. Now, this agreement is very unusual. A court-enforced settlement agreement that prohibits the federal government from bringing this commercial spent fuel to Idaho. And what's happening now is Governor Otter and Attorney General Wasden are saying to the Department of Energy they can go ahead and bring some shipments to Idaho. They are waiving the prohibition, the ban on this in this agreement. They've done it without any public involvement, no public notice, and they're in partnership with the Department of Energy. So today we are sending a notice of intent letter to the Secretary of Energy saying you have to follow federal law. Our nation's basic environmental law is the National Environmental Policy Act, and what it says is federal agencies tell the public before they do things that may affect the environment, they seek public comment, they provide analysis of what the impacts might be, and they disclose it all. That has not happened here. The citizens of Idaho don't know what the Department of Energy plans to do with commercial spent nuclear fuel coming to Idaho. Governors Andrus and Batt are very concerned about that. Our letter says follow federal law, disclose this publicly, and take into account this unique agreement. We're also sending a second letter today to Governor Otter and to Governor Wasden, advising them of this plan to initiate federal litigation if necessary, and calling on the governor and the attorney general to join with us in requiring DOE to be very public about this, disclose it to the public, analyze what they're proposing to do, let people weigh in on this. So this is an attempt to get the federal and state governments to be transparent, to be open. If they're not going to do that, then we'll go to federal court. As Governor Andrus said, we don't want to take that step. So today is an attempt to call on the federal and state governments to do what's right, disclose to the public what's going on with these commercial spent nuclear fuel shipments.
Thank you very much, Larry. Ladies and gentlemen, let me pause for a moment till we get the mics back. I have from a very direct and I think honest source that last week the Attorney General wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Interior,
Secretary of
Energy. Interior, hometown for
That's you.
Yeah. But I'm told that he wrote a letter to DOE Secretary stating that he has withdrawn his agreement to the waiver that was given a month ago by he and Governor Otter. His comment has been that he will not even consider a waiver until the facility for the calcining of that liquid waste is operational. Now, I would just respectfully suggest to the members of the media that are here today that maybe a good question to the Attorney General: did you send a letter? If you did, may I have a copy of it? Did you withdraw your waiver? Now, if he did, then there is no waiver, in my opinion. I don't believe that the governor of the state of Idaho has the authority for just himself to amend, to delete, to give waivers on the 1995 agreement. So the only way that we can find this out is if the media will do what you're trained to do. Go ask those two gentlemen the question. I'd be interested to hear that. Unless my colleagues have something to add, I would respond.
Well, I have the same question. Is the AG back and clear off of this thing? If so, are we just talking Governor Otter? I don't know.
No, I don't have the letter, but I'm told that it was mailed either Thursday or Friday of last week, and that he stated that he was withdrawing. I can't remember the exact words that they told me, that he was withdrawing from the consent of the waiver until they get that facility in operation. Now, if that's the case, he has to answer that question. I don't know whether it's the case or not. But then that leaves it to Governor Otter all by himself. And the people of the state of Idaho will have the final word. We'd happy to answer any question that you have.
Governors, when you first made this announcement, Governor Otter had a response the same day, and he said that in his view this was a very small amount of material and it was coming in for a specific purpose regarding research. He thought it was a different thing from a resumption of shipments. Why do you differ so strongly with that interpretation that he had?
Well, you're right when you say I disagree strongly. I think I can say that we disagree strongly in that a little bit here and a little bit there. We don't care whether it's 1 pound or 1,000 pounds. It just accumulates on top of what is already here, and the federal government does not have any plan for the removal of this waste once it gets here. There is no Yucca Mountain.
Particularly when they're hunting for a replacement for Yucca Mountain and are desperately looking all over the nation for one. Everybody is. We could take in billions of dollars if we wanted to qualify for Yucca Mountain. Maybe that's where they're headed. I don't know.
Anyway, Betsy, in response to your question, we do not want any waiver. We want the 95 agreement to stay intact. And if they want to discuss things with the DOE, discuss with how that agreement, they will meet that agreement. I would say to you that our attitude is no more waste. We've had almost 50 years since I started being involved in this, of being lied to, changed. They haven't met any of the timetables that they set out to meet. They have, they've lied to us on several occasions. I wouldn't trust them.
Betsy, let me add one more thing. The information that has come from Department of Energy about these shipments is very limited. But what it does say, the governor alluded to at the beginning, is they're apparently looking at a 10-year program of shipments. This appears to be just the beginning, where they're going to spend $10 to $20 million a year for 10 years, meaning $200 million total. So it apparently is not just one or two shipments, but more will be coming. It's also really unclear what's going to happen here at Idaho. For instance, some of the facilities at INL have been shut down. Are they going to be reopened in order to treat this waste? This is dealing with a different kind of waste than they've dealt with before, from a light water commercial nuclear reactors, not from the Navy, not from DOE research facilities. So is this the beginning of a major program? That has not been disclosed or discussed at all.
Other questions?
Governor, earlier you used the word repeal to refer to the actions of the governor and attorney general. Do you believe that's what's going on, that what they're doing with the 95 agreement is repealing it?
Piecemeal repeal of the 95 agreement is what that cumulative impact would be. And you know, the rumor mill out there is full of all kinds of things. I know that, for example, the ink wasn't even dry on the 95 agreement until the DOE and the Justice Department said, no, we don't have to dig up all of it. We went to the Federal District Court twice and to the Ninth Circuit Court once in order to get the Judge Lodge to be able to say all means all. And now there is a proposal before the advisory committee or council, whatever they call it, for INL, that they want to not dig up a couple of the areas that they were supposed to. Those areas are the INTEC facility and the ATR complex. Now that's just a question, but they continually are chipping away at the agreement that this man put together in 1995. So yes, I would say to you that there are people out there that want to extend the date from 2035 to 2050. They want to do away with the penalty provisions of the 95 Act and other areas where they do not. I would say to you that you used the right word when you said repeal.
That was the word you used, Governor.
Oh, is that my word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Governors, you were concerned last time we gathered here about the governor and the governor's office not reaching out and consulting you along the process for this. Have you had meaningful conversation with the governor since?
Aaron, I've had no conversation with the governor, period. I have had conversation with a couple of his staff members, but I would say to you, we did not say that we were disturbed because they didn't reach out to us. They didn't reach out to the Idaho citizens as is required under the NEPA Act. That should have been, as our counsel said a moment ago, those things should have been done in advance of these waivers. And the transparency that needs to be there when you have a substantial federal action. And we always learned about this after the fact. Well, we have made a decision. I had a phone call late yesterday, a communication, I should say, late yesterday, saying that today they're going to release some kind of a press release that they've resolved the commitment of how they're going to work out their inability to meet the 95 timeline, which was December 31st, 2012. They're already over 2 years behind. Now they want to extend that. Now that was a verbal communication. I have not seen the actual press release that they have in mind. But no, Aaron, I'm just saying that the people are the ones that approved this. It wasn't just the governor or
I
myself.
know, but it's very strange, they never contacted either of us, ever,
Yeah, but
about this conversation. But then further than that, it's the people have not, this thing, if it were changed, if agreement were changed, has to come from the people. They're the ones that sustain it to begin with.
that's right.
They're not contacting them. They're
Long
doing things
answer to
behind
a
the
short
scenes.
question, but
But a follow-up, Governor Batt, have you had any conversations?
I'm sorry?
Have you had any conversations with Governor?
No, ma'am,
Otter?
I haven't had a word. I was handed a letter at the governor's inauguration that told me part of the procedures that they were going to follow, and I had no direct contact. Maybe the AG's office has tried a couple times through Clive Strong, but nothing from the governor's office.
let me tell you, Betsy, a footnote of what he just said. The letter that was handed to him at the inauguration, I was too busy to attend the inauguration. I had other important,
Why didn't you go?
well, other important things to do that day, Phil. Anyway, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, I received a message that they had, the two of them had agreed to this waiver. And I was irritated and questioned it. I picked up the phone and called Governor Batt. And I said, what did you people over there decide when my back was turned? And he
I hadn't even opened my letter yet.
and he said, what are you talking about? and I said, Phil, I just got a message from the governor's staff that said, Phil said, well, they handed me an envelope. I put it in my pocket, but I haven't opened it. I said, go open it and read it. And then he exploded. And that's how we were informed. Anything else?
Question for Governor Batt. The Energy Secretary.
I don't hear so well.
The Energy Secretary and Governor Otter and Attorney General Wasden all say the proposed nuclear waste coming into the state is all for research. Do you believe it's just for research?
Could you what?
Do you believe it's just for research, or?
Oh, I don't doubt their intentions. There's a case to be made that you could open up INEL for all kinds of nuclear waste coming in and do some things with it, and probably bring a lot of good jobs to Idaho. I don't deny that that's a proper consideration, but they have to sell this to the public. The public said they don't want this to happen, and consequently, I'm very much opposed to it.
We have said very, very clearly, no more waste. And D2E paragraph in the 95 agreement says very clearly, there shall be no importation of commercial nuclear waste into the state of Idaho. That is what we should defend. That's where we have to be. Now, we could talk about how much waste is there, but you take a pin or a spent fuel rod is about the size of that pencil, only it's 12 feet long, and they put them together in bundles, and then they put the bundles together to make an appliance, or what's the word I want, Counselor?
Assembly of spent fuel.
Yeah, an
rod.
assembly, yeah. They put many of these clusters together and make an assembly that goes in it. Now, when they start shipping it, and then they take a piece of it, what happens to the rest of it that goes into storage? They're even talking about creating a nuclear waste, spent nuclear fuel waste library. Where? How? Maybe in a bank vault downtown Idaho Falls. Not a bad idea. But anyway, Luke, did you get that?
Got it.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, I would just say to you that there's been no disclosure whatsoever, and Governor Batt and I are ready to go to federal district court if they don't come to their senses.
So to be clear, what's the timeline? Has the letter been sent
The
already?
letter was sent this morning, both by mail and by email. And we're asking the federal and state governments to agree to do this public disclosure. So the first shipment is scheduled for June. I would anticipate that if our concerns are not resolved, we'd be filing litigation in federal court sometime before then, probably April or May, something like that. We want to give time for discussions to see if there's a way to work this out.
Anything else?
Governors, if this fuel were to come into Idaho, what would it mean for the average Idaho citizen?
What would be, what?
What would it mean for the average Idaho citizen and the everyday person if this fuel were to come into the state?
That would mean that, once again, you've compounded the danger that lies just 635 feet below where they store this. That's the aquifer. If you contaminate that aquifer, it flows down, it migrates underground and comes out of Thousand Springs. And, you know, the carbon tetrachloride they dumped had a dilution factor. That's what saved us there. However, plutonium, uranium, and others, they don't have a dilution factor. It has a time factor. And you let that migrate into the aquifer and it comes down. What happens to the water that irrigates the Idaho potatoes? There's almost 4 million acres of irrigated ag land. What happens to the alfalfa that's watered with that?
And the problem with that is you get the least hint of it, the publicity all over the world, that's the end of the Idaho potato industry,
That's right.
even if they aren't contaminated.
And there's an onion farmer
I'm an onion farmer.
that knows exactly what he's talking about.
So-
Anything else? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming, and I would urge you to determine whether, in fact, there was a letter by the Attorney General mailed, transmitted last week, saying that he is no longer supporting that. And if that's true, then I'd trot across the hall to the governor and say, Gov, you're all by yourself. What are you going to do? Thank you very much for coming.